Hello, everyone. It's been a while. I hope you guys are keeping well. Been away a couple months, back now, away from the cameras and, living life, attending to family, work, and several other things. I think it's okay to, sometimes get away from the cameras and, you know, do projects, run your business, run your career, run your family, and come back to the screens. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to lead those conversations that impact on our families, our careers, our businesses, our dreams, our self development goals. And I hope that the episode we're going to be having today would, give you some insights for your own advancement on your journeys. I have a special guest on the pod. He's been here before and is someone that I hold dear to heart. He's lived the journey that we're going to be talking about today. He's lived the both worlds of paid employment and the very uncertain world of entrepreneurship. Some people say um, the security lies with a paid job, but quite frankly, what if, and as we see in our current reality, what if the paid job that you've been holding very close to heart is not actually as secure as you thought it was? So those are the assumptions that will be challenging today. And I'll welcome our guest shortly. John Okoro has over close to 15 years of experience in the clean energy sector, working in several companies before he ventured out into the world of entrepreneurship. He's worked in close to 30 plus countries across the world, most especially in Africa. He's done several projects in the clean energy space. He brings with him tons of experiences that I'm hoping would be a blessing to someone somewhere around the world. So I'm asking you to stay tuned. This is Unity Speaks podcast. Like this video, subscribe, share with friends. Ideas shared, ideas that spread, and ideas that spread are ideas that have a chance to change the world. So let's do this together and stay tuned for the next couple minutes. John Okoro, MD Growth Energy. Welcome to the studio. Very nice to see you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Unity. It's good to be back here. I appreciate it.
Very, very nice to see you. Been a couple months we've met. We've last seen, and I know you are doing amazing work in your company. And I'd like you to share some experiences from your journey currently and how you were able to transition to what you're currently doing. The first part I'd like us to talk about today is people talk about 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is about your job, what you do, your career, how you earn a living. But many people don't talk about what you do from 5 to 9. My question to you would be, how did you manage your 5 to 9 in the way that sets you up for your current entrepreneurial work?
Thank you very much. It's good again to be back here. For me, I think it was very clearly enough that even if I was working in a job, I was working for myself. And this was clear in the way I took work. For me, there was even no barrier in terms of, there was no categorization of time in terms of 9 to 5, 5 to 9. It was more about what challenges and solutions I was bringing to the marketplace via the company I was working at. So the transition came rather naturally because I was already in the mindset that my work was, I was not answering in reality to an employer, but to the market, right? In terms of the value that I was bringing to the team and to the management, to the market, to the client, etc. So the transition came as a result also from the market. It was listening to the market.
Mm.
Because there's the concept of entrepreneurship that's guided my career over the years. I've never really seen myself as an employee, but more of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur within the ambits of a company. And so because of that market orientation, whenever I had a major decision, so my transition came from listening to the market, when even if there was a change within the company I was working at, and I was asked to do something else, but I felt that the market thought differently. And that feeling was what led me to say, okay, now is the time to move on, to transition, to do something, to continue what I'm doing, even if it didn't align with the goals of the organization I was working at. So, and that was when I decided to leave that job and partner with a company in Paris at the time. And we did set up the company today that I co-founded and I lead as managing director.
Okay. I hear you. I hear that you had your ears out listening to the developments of the industry, sensitive to the trajectory that the company was taking. People sometimes say if your company is not enrolled on the same path as your career dreams, it's okay to fire your boss, like they say, or fire the company, rather than wait for them to fire you. But I believe that the future is built by all of what you do today, not just the grand idea of something that you do tomorrow. People say tomorrow is an illusion in itself. To circle back to that question, how did you engage after work, in between weekends, on holiday? How did you engage in the way that sort of built the foundation or the platform for that big leap that you took?
I have always been this student of life. I'm very humble to understand that I don't know as much as I should, and there's always the opportunity to learn. And I've learned a lot from you, learned a lot from a lot of other friends as well. And one of the principles that I've early enough heard and I've kept very true to heart is the one that is said by Jim Rohn. He says, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." So that's what you talked about, the 5 to 9. It's really what you do outside your job and to build yourself and develop yourself. And so for me, I spent a lot of time outside work asking different questions. In fact, there was really I didn't see any transition between being at work or being outside work. It was the same thing always. I could be playing with my kids and in a park, but I'm conscious of whatever I see. I'm conscious of what market trends there are. I could be watching a TV series with my wife, and I'm asking myself, is there something to learn from here? So I think just being consciously a student of life, and always asking questions and always being open to learning, and that transition for me then came naturally. So what I would do during the 5 to 9, for instance, is just consciously learn, being open to learn, being open to gleaning information from the market, asking a lot of questions. I was always open to attending conferences and wherever I could gain a lot of knowledge from, and experience from, and I was involved in a lot of extra career activities. And we did a lot of that as well, and that brought a lot of networking opportunities. Yes. So and that's how I found myself speaking at conferences with some of the people that almost a decade ago were mentors or were role models, people that I look up to, and I found myself then speaking at the same conferences with them, and just stretching oneself to understand that the more you grow, the more you can travel within. You would not stand still without. So at the end of the day, you feel sort of the vision that you see for yourself, because life has this way of putting together the environment, making sure the environment aligns with the internal environment.
Absolutely. Inside
Some
out.
way.
Inside out living. Absolutely. I'll hold the statements you just made about speaking in conferences with CEOs and why at the time you're not a CEO. What would you advise a young professional out there who is trying to choose between a big name and, for example, they'll say the big five in consulting and a small consulting firm, or a big behemoth, billions in revenue, very enticing name. I don't want to mention anyone, versus working in a place where you've got exposure. They send you for conferences, for example, if that's something that you're interested in. You speak for the company, you travel on the behalf of the company. You are in the civil, you understand the civil workings of the company because of the size. What would you advise? I know environment matters and different strokes for different folks. Mileages of people varies, but what's your advice to such people in the light of a future in entrepreneurship?
If you want to be an entrepreneur, understand how business works is very important.
Yeah.
Yes, and the alignment with the market. And if you don't have this holistic vision, having the opportunity to understand the 360-degree approach of what business means, the challenge is that entrepreneurship will be a big burden. Absolutely be a big burden, because entrepreneurship is whatever you think about as being in a career or working in a company, you can multiply that by 10 times, because then the bulk stops on your table as an entrepreneur.
That's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for me, I think it was a big blessing that, and also a choice to some extent, but a big blessing that I had most of my career in companies organizations where I could report directly to somebody on the management or the CEO.
Yeah.
Yes. In a good part of it, I was reporting either to the CEO or the co-CEO of the companies I was working with. And I was always asking questions. I was always trying to understand, like, how do these businesses work?
Yeah.
And always being close to the market, because at the end of the day, the revenue stream is what pays other parts of the business. I was always in that part that was involved in the revenue, the market-facing part of the company. So that prepared me for a life of entrepreneurship, because it allowed me to learn from the leaders making the decisions and understanding what reports are necessary to the board. And that is very important, because there's some communications that the board does not necessarily care about.
Sure.
And that's the reality, because it has no direct impact on the bottom line.
Yeah.
But listening to the market, understanding how the processes align or how to optimize processes, what the cost structure looks like, and all these things these are some of the things that you learn if you're in a smaller organization that gives you access to the top management.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people in my career that have had the kind of success that a lot of people wish for, material success. They've been in careers for many years, but you can hear some sense of regret of not having this big picture reality, this big picture view of the way the business works in such a manner that it was at some point their dream to be able to leave or transition from that career they've got or they had to owning the business, but because they always sacrificed the comfort of being within an organization, a big organization, a conglomerate, for the opportunity to learn. So they never just got a chance to do what they had to do. But they have wealth, they have material, they can buy whatever they want, but they still see this sense of fulfillment that is lacking. So I think if people want to be entrepreneurs, because it's not definitely the goal for everyone, right? To be an entrepreneur, to run their own business. But if one wants to be an entrepreneur, one wants to run a company, you want to add impact at some level, understanding the way business works is one of the most crucial things to do very early on, right? And for me, beyond just understanding the way business works, is having the opportunity to learn in a setting that allows access to leadership, decision making, and understanding the impact of decision making on the way the business works or functions. So that if you then go on to run your own company, then you understand what people management means, you understand what difficult decision making means, what operations means, how decisions trickle down to different departments.
Yeah.
There are companies that are much bigger than governments. So in such a
Absolutely.
setting, it's absolutely unimaginable to even think of, early on in the first 10 years of one's career, for instance, knowing what decisions mean, and time is really a key resource in running a company. So in my career, being in such settings where I found myself in much smaller organizations where I was reporting to either the CEO or the co-CEO or somebody in top management, I regularly would represent the company in very big conferences, and I'll find myself speaking with CEOs in such conferences. Those were, for me, training ground, and I took a big hit on revenues early enough, or salary as we call it, or remuneration early enough for learning.
For learning, yeah.
Yes, and I traded that, and it was intentional because I felt that the first part of my career was more like an MBA, and it was more like a learning process.
I remember
for me.
you saying that.
That's correct. Yeah. So and for me, I was excited to be paid. Even if comparatively, I wasn't earning as much as some of my
peers,
my contemporaries, if I use that word, but I was learning, and for me that was very important. So today, what I do is as a result of most of what I've learned during this early years. I learned a lot, international business negotiation, being on table negotiating with governments, very complex transactions, multilateral deals, the impact of tax. So there's a lot of things I do today that for my age, or for
an experience
level, many people would consider it quite complex, but it's because of the kind of experience I've gotten over the years, and that came as a result of the intentional decision to sacrifice remuneration early enough for learning, and being able to have mentors in reporting directly to key management that allowed me to learn a lot of these things. Yes,
amazing. I mean, that's a big takeaway for everyone watching out there. In your decision matrix for picking a job, you can't use salary alone. You can't use compensation alone. You have to look at several other factors in drilling down on one thing or one path you like to take, or one job that you like to embrace. I have another question for you, John. I know that we work together. For some people out there that might need to know this, we did work together a couple of times. John and I were on the board of a bilateral organization in France. You were, and at that time I was in school. You were out already. You were doing your 9 to 5. You were on that board. We were both on a consulting on the management team of a consulting company. You probably had some other things you were doing on the side. How were you doing? And I assume that you never missed your deadlines or the requirements of your job or your KPIs. And yet you were still doing all of these outside office hours, weekends. How did you manage all of the things that you did at the time? What do you advise to someone who has a primary responsibility to deliver on some deliverables on his 9 to 5, and also needs to do all of these things to prepare for his future? How should such person manage their time and their commitments?
I think priority is very important. Yes. Early on, I read a material from one of the great scholars in management, talking about the essentialism, the discipline
of less.
Also, Discipline Pursuit of Less was a very good book, but essentialism, which is more talking about how you pursue less, right? Discipline Pursuit of Less. And this book really just talks about you have to decide on. It's important to know what you want, but it's also as important to know what you don't want, what is not important. So this prioritization, but also how the phases of life has a way of life is a school, has a way of humbling people, and one must approach life with a lot of humility and that sense of understanding that every phase of life has an impact. So I'm very fortunate to also have a great family. My wife is one of the solid pillars of my career. So, and I got married early enough as well. So I got married quite early. So juggling those things as well, also having a family to take care of, and it was important for everyone around me to understand what the vision is and what is important, and that's prioritization. So once, of course, it was very clear from the onset, what is my vision, what am I looking for in terms of my career, life, etc. So Friends of Nigeria at the time, which is the organization we're still very much part of, still on the board of the organization, was part of an integral part of the plan. And so finding time to do what I had to do was a case of then saying no to other things that that I considered not priority. So whilst, for instance, I would receive invitations to be somewhere else, because of course you're working in 9 to 5, you have colleagues that invite you, okay, let's go grab a cup of this and that. And networking is quite important in career, but sometimes you cannot be in such places because there are other things to do that are more priority in terms of just goal setting and goal planning. So that's how I found the time to do the other things. One, of course, making sure that during the time I'm engaged at work, I give my time to do what needs to be done. But then after work, if there are things that need to be done for Friends of Nigeria, that's also a priority. And sometimes you have to work late into the night. Sure. After putting the kids to bed, and then of course, then you start the other cycle, but you have to be at work the next day.
The night shift.
The night shift. Or you have to travel. Sometimes you have to take time off work while others are on holiday, but you've taken some time. Part of your holiday might just be then working on this other part of the vision that is also as important. So I think it's just really balancing. And recently I watched an interview of Barack Obama, and he talks about how some people talk a lot about balance and really equilibrium, but it's an utopic imagination. It's not really the reality, which means that sometimes there might be times when Friends of Nigeria becomes so important in terms of we approaching a key event, for instance, and we just I need to take some time off work. So and sometimes when, of course, work becomes also, some of the tasks are so important, the contracts and deals at the time, and so I also need to explain that I don't have enough time for Friends of Nigeria. Yes, so just really finding that at different moments there's importance to really prioritize, and some things are more priority than others during some moments, and some other times the other way is the case. Yeah. So I think it's just, that's for me. And I've also maintained a different kind of calendar and planning right from early on. And that really involves goal setting early, very, very early in terms of goal setting, looking at the year and what needs to be done, but also people, like I talked about earlier, that life has a way of humbling, and one of the ways is really it's important to avoid such defining adverse situations, is to choose one's network very well, right? And one of the blessings I've had is having great friends like you, Unity. So because that was this defining in the early years of Friends of Nigeria, what we had to do together. Absolutely. And also with our friend and partner as well, Abiodun. And so if you have a good team, and I've met a lot of other organizations that complain, that I've met co-founders that say, all the work is on me and all that. I've not had that. I'm blessed to not have experienced that, right? Where we all decide that this is where we're going and we work towards it together. So I think that's another thing, because one cannot do everything oneself, no matter how motivated and driven. One needs a team of people that we can share the common vision, and that's the way organizations also work. So there's a lot of that collaboration and synergy that happens that is also very key in a career as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. Let's talk about the inflection point at which you made that transition. For the viewers out there, I think they would like to know at what point you gathered or you inferred that your job was not as secured as it seemed. At what point did you start to? I know you mentioned to me, you gave me a news sometime back that one of the places you had worked actually went bankrupt, meaning that if you had stayed, you would have been a casualty. So at what point did you see the future, if I may use that word? Did you decide to make that leap before the ship sank?
For me, it's about value. Once in an organization, I feel that I'm not getting enough value from the organization in terms of And value, I mean learning.
Yeah.
And value for me is really learning. Am I learning? Am I growing? So I discovered at some point in that organization, I started to plateau because the I had learned what I needed to learn, and there were less and less opportunities to actually learn. And I saw that, I observed that the market was changing. I listened a lot to the market. I learned that I saw that the market was changing, and some of the things we were doing were not necessarily aligned to the changing market because things move really fast. You literally have to run to stand still in this current dispensation.
Yeah.
So once I saw that, I was at the same time contacted by another organization that was very interested in my skills and was aligned with where I felt the market was going. So it was at that point, and I'm not the kind of person that applies for jobs. I'm one of when I was an employee, I was very dedicated because I would not have the time. I'm the kind of employee that I would not have the time to apply for other jobs, no matter what's happening. So until I felt that I was no longer learning. So it's at that point that I began to listen to the market. And so I just got contacted, and I did not apply for the opportunity. It was someone that had seen the work we were doing at the time that I was doing that said, you know what, I think you can do this. And I was recommended for that. And that was when the leap came. That was when this remuneration break came, because I went from earning a certain amount. I almost had 100% increase in what I was earning at the time. And so, and a much more bigger responsibility and more bigger portfolio. So I was now in the position of deciding where I had to, what the opportunities were to look at, what the market inflection point was, and what structure and strategy needed to be in place to take the company to where it had to be. So it was much senior leadership role. And so going to that role was for me as though I had prepared all my life for that opportunity, because all the learnings that happened, listening to the market, learning from those ahead of me, what they were doing right and what they were not doing, or what they were omitting to do, because doing and not doing at the same thing is a decision, right? So that decision of not doing or doing right, for me, became a learning point, and that's what I applied into the new role. But there's I don't believe in permanence, or I believe life is one must stay flexible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because things change a lot. So even in that company, as you rightly did mention, the market changed, and because of the decision not to adapt to the changing times, unfortunately, that company went bankrupt. And many years after, not too long ago, I was called to participate in a bid for the company. So if I had stayed back in that company, there's no way I'll be contacted to buy a company, because they would not. I mean, I would not be in a position to do that. But I was contacted because they felt that I was in a position to do that, and I was. I supported the bid to buy the company. So, and that's because I then got into a point at which I now have the necessary experience and expertise to take over a company, and that had to be done in an industry. Even if I believe that the energy market is changing really quickly, and I feel that there's some things that can be done to change and turn around a company that is in the right part, or that would be in the right position to do that.
Awesome. They call it, I think it's called canary in the coal mine. Your ability to, yours was learning. For some people, it might be that you see that your company is no longer innovating. For some people, you see that your company is stuck in the past. They want to continue to use horse and carriage when people have moved to automobiles. So, I mean, AI is here, it's a buzzword now. So you want to look at the trends, you want to take the leap before the ship sinks, whatever that means for you. So very instructive, and I think that many people find that very, very useful. People have several myths about entrepreneurship. I've heard people say, I want to be my own boss. That's I want to be an entrepreneur. Some people say, I want to be, I like the idea that they call you sir. Sir, very, very vain ideas. People think that I don't want to start work at 9. I like to resume anytime I like. I mean, several myths out there. In your experience, what drove home the reality of entrepreneurship to you, And I'd like you to bust some of those myths, really.
Yes, and for me, it's been a humbling experience, entrepreneurship, because no matter how you think you're prepared,
Yeah.
it still has a way of teaching you lessons in
Hard
preparation,
lessons.
hard lessons. And that's why I guess there's a popular program, a guy going around interviewing people called School of Hard Knocks. That's what entrepreneurship is.
True.
It's a school, and it's a school of endurance. It's a school that tests every facet of tests faith, belief, understanding, patience. It's a school of really of hard knocks. So anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur because you want freedom, freedom is a good thing in the right context. So I'll come back to that. But if it's just a question of I want more time, I want to work less, I want someone to be able to carry my bag whenever I enter a space, then I think you're having a big illusion, because those are not drivers. When it gets tough, those things you would forget. Right? Because at the end of the month, you've got bills that knock they work once in 30 days or once in 2 weeks, depending on what jurisdiction you are in. So it's beyond the hype. It's a serious business of you're solving a problem, you're getting paid for bringing value to the marketplace. You put together a team, a structure to do that. And you have to manage that structure, because at the end of the day, the buck stops in you. You can put in place processes, but you have to manage the processes. And that's why in companies, there's a board, there's always the process of management, right, in companies. So for me, the biggest learning experience has been the fact that no matter how prepared you are in entrepreneurship, it still has a way of humbling you. So you have a way of learning a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things. We've had to adjust strategies along the way. We've had to change the direction of our market focus and approach. We've had to innovate in many ways. We've had to expand to new markets that we didn't initially plan to do, because the market is changing. The market is ever evolving. And that's why being market-centric, listening to the market, and also listening to people, putting in place the right teams, so that you always have a flow of innovation, a very positive flow of innovation and ideas that are oriented towards the market, is very key. So for me, it's been that process. And I was never the person that wanted to be an entrepreneur because I wanted to drive the best cars or the remuneration, etc. Or I wanted to. Those things are very important. This is good. Those are the byproducts,
of course,
of solving and creating solutions to the marketplace. So it's always been about what problem am I solving, what impact am I bringing to the marketplace, and what leadership means in doing that, and ensuring that one builds system that actually stands the test of time. And that's the biggest challenge for an entrepreneur, and that's what any entrepreneur will spend so much time doing, as more time in the career doing, until they get to the point at which you've built systems and processes in place that you no longer need to be there for the business to run. If that takes a year, that's it. If that takes 5 years, that's it. But sometimes that takes 30 years, 25 years, a decade perhaps, right? 2 decades, 3 decades. But until that happens, you cannot step out of that business, because that business is not sellable until that happens. It doesn't have a residual value. And that's what you do as an entrepreneur, when you're building something that has a residual value, right? That has a value irrespective of yourself, right? And all the big companies we can see around the world, the conglomerates, the unicorns, all have the same stories. Before they got to that point, there had to be a long process by the founders to take the company there, or even if they were taken over initially, because there was an initial buyout or things like that, there's still that process of creating additional value before being able to sell it. And that process of creating value means that there's no 9 to 5. There's no, okay, now is not the time to do it. I mean, I still had to shoot an email some minutes ago because I saw some emails from some members of my team. So things like that. And this is a weekend, right? Because you have in our business, we have multiple sites running in several countries. So being able to understand that a decision is very key, and we've seen it today. One tweet, one thing can change the world. One tweet can turn. So
let's not mention
names. so one burst of information is a very dynamic market, changing so much that from one night to the other. The market has so evolved that without a decision being made the night before, it's really an information age, it's a communication-driven age, technology-driven age. Things are moving really fast. That the notion of time has changed. It's now transient.
Mm.
Notion of time is very contextual.
Yeah.
So now, so time has a very important now role to play in terms of the way business is now operated.
Absolutely.
And so there cannot be that compartmentalization of time to say then it's 9 to 5, etc. So that's been one of the big lessons, is that you need to always stay on it, be on it all the time. And so as an employee, you can say, well, it's Saturday. I mean, I don't work. I respond to it on Monday. But the CEO understands better that there's no Monday, no Saturday, no Sunday.
Otherwise, there will be no business to resume as on Monday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I saw a video one time. My wife had shared it with me. I think it was an extended family of business people. So they were on vacation, and the video showed them all taking calls. They were all,
I saw that.
And that's what it means to have. That's what it means to be a business person, to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is an action word. It's not a title. You have to show up. You have to. For personal experience, when we started our business, we're doing probably 60-hour work weeks, or even, so what we didn't even do on a regular job, and that took a while. That took probably 1-2 years, and to go to a point where, so there is that phase, quite frankly, yeah. I'd like to talk about the breakthroughs now. How long did it take you to go through the deep? How long did it take you to, what do you feel like when you got your first deal? I know that feeling when we put in our first invoice, or when the first payment came. It tells you that you're onto something. Well, how did it feel like? How long did it take you, to get through that phase?
Yes, it took a couple of months. And interestingly,
were you in despair? Were you frustrated?
No,
at some point.
No, I think for us also, because we had built a career in this. I had worked quite a while in this, and the stories that when I had the opportunity to leave my company, I was proposed something else to do at the time. I was proposed to lead another division, and this had to do with really staying out of the market I had spent the last more than a decade building, which was the African market. So I thought about it for a while, and I said no, because looking at the market, we had the clients, we had the portfolio, and this company had already invested quite a sum in building these projects that I was developing, these projects that I was leading at the time as an employee. And so I saw it as an opportunity to take over this portfolio. And so we partnered with the company, one of our partners at the time, and then we took over the portfolio of this company, and we bought over the clean energy division of the company. And so we continued, we set up a company to do that. And so the first deals came rather naturally, because these were clients that already knew us. And there's a place of continuity, there's a place of alignment, which is very important, because I had a good job. I had a really good job. I had a very good rapport with the management of the company. So everything was going very well, as one would expect. I could have just easily gone to a new department and start focusing on a different market. And I would still be in that job today, earning very well, and even far more than I was earning at the time. But the kind of things that we're doing today, the kind of impact we're making, the kind of projects we're working on, there's no way I would have. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've done far more numbers than I ever did in my career in 8 years, 10 years, right, of my career working as an employee. So,
impressive.
So that's it's part of the story as well. That sometimes you have to take risks. It comes with challenges. But it also comes with opportunities. And being open-minded makes a big deal. Makes things happen, because being open-minded and also staying at it, right? So the first big deal came a couple of months after we had started. It was a bit shaky in the beginning, because you have to set up companies, you have to, and we are operating in multiple jurisdictions. So at some point, a couple of months down the line, we understood that we needed to create new subsidiaries, and so it's the cost associated with that, and all the necessary setting up, and the regulatory. The license topics and all that needs to happen around that was an uphill task, but understanding that it had to be done, it had to be done somehow. So we we paid the price. So I did, and myself and my co-founder of the company. So we put in all the necessary work that had to be done, and so down the line we signed quite a good amount of deals. The first deal with the big multinational, and the second deal afterwards, and the third deal, and we began to expand. We grew from a 3-person company. Now we're more than 20 people in the company, and in 4 countries. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Very impressive. In regards to, I mean, you just mentioned those interesting numbers, going from 3 to 20. In regards to the growth curve of the company, at what point do you? I assume that the you I know you probably were doing several things in the company when you guys started out on it. At what point did you start to give it those roles out, delegate to people? When did you start to, rather than work in the business, like I say, when did you start to work on the business? Because for some people, they need to grow, they need to upscale their work, they need to take it to the next level, reduce your owner hours, and bring it to a point where it's a system that actually works. So, at what point did you make that leap?
So when we realized that we could not do projects or do activities or meet our vision just by a very small team, and initially we grew faster than we should have. I think this is just reading afterwards and learning experiences from different entrepreneurs afterwards. I did realize that it's not an uncommon mistake, right, of entrepreneurs or companies that grow faster than they should have, to come back to the drawing board and sort of do this again, right? Do it in a different way. So that happened to us as well. We grew rather fast, and with teams in different countries, we had to come back to the drawing board to make adjustments in a few things, especially when you have a lot of virtual teams in different countries. There's some things you cannot do virtually. I mean, I do appreciate all the merits of virtual business, but it's just that part of, especially in our business, we operate in markets on the African continent, and there's a very strong part of this people culture, feeling, etc. And we have offices in all these countries, so it's important for training, very big part of training, leadership training of the different teams and etc. So that's at the point that we discovered that we cannot do this ourselves alone. We have to build leaders within the company. We need to have to build managers within the company. We have to build team leads within the company, people that can actually lead their teams, so that then we have a chain of reporting that we're only brought strategic things, not operational things, right? And we're still in that phase of leadership building, that growth mindset, instilling it in our teams, but also having leaders emerge from the teams and leading the organization. So that's a key phase of the growth of any organization, and we are in that phase where it's really important to set up and build that leadership, that hierarchy. So today, yes, we have a team in different markets, and there are people I do not lead directly. Actually, we have about M plus 4 in our company. So there's a chain of reporting, there's a chain of command. But I always like to be on top of. I like to know exactly what's going on, even to the minute of detail, because it's the person that is client. Most times in different companies, the people that are client facing are the people at the bottom of the hierarchy, right? So they're the ones that understand how the clients feel.
They're the ones that know what's going on in the market.
Exactly. So I like to always keep this, even if there's a hierarchy with the organization, I like to keep it semi-flat. I like ideas and innovations to actually come to me, because sometimes they might get stuck in the chain of command.
Sure.
And this is something that kills companies really fast, especially when you're dealing in an innovative industry or sector. So I like everybody to feel that they have access directly to me or directly to the board. It's so important that they can actually share ideas and things, and they can reach out at any time, shoot me an email. So everybody has access to my email, no matter who the person is in whichever country. But they know that if it's operational, if it's strategic, yes, the kind of things I want to know are things that affect directly the market, that are about ideas, innovations, and things like that, to encourage a culture of open communication.
Okay.
where they can actually see anything. But there's also governance principle, there's code of conduct and all those things. So that if anything that has to do with specific, there are topics that are very important, like around conduct, around code of conduct, these things should be trickled down through the necessary, very quick communication that allows us to act decisively and swiftly at any point in time. Yes, but it's very important. One cannot build a business that is built to last with a one person team. At some point, one needs to delegate, and like you mentioned, at what point they start working out of the business or in the business and out of business. Was at the point at which I realized that, or we realized as a company that yes, it was time to scale. The projects we were doing could allow for, actually called for that, because we're dealing with clients that in multiple jurisdictions. It's important to have a structure, a team, etc. Yes.
Okay. Two follow-up questions. Did you ever feel out of depth with all of this astronomical growth? Did you ever feel incompetent? Did you ever feel, the imposter syndrome is a thing? You mentioned your company had acquired a company here in Canada. Did you ever feel like you couldn't measure up, considering the rapid changes in your journey? Also, I'd like you to speak about partnership. I think if you're open to talk about it, partnership sometimes, and role playing, really, two partners running a firm. Yeah, there's a science to it, which I like to share. Yeah, also sequences.
Absolutely, yes. On the first part, yes, there's been times that made me question what I feel I know, what I felt I know at different instances, and to seek for knowledge quickly to deal with certain situations. And one of which has been things around just on leadership, on management, styles of management. It gets challenging when you're dealing in different jurisdictions. And this has been a humbling experience, because when you have, it's a different thing when you have a large team in one country. There's a culture in the country. There's a way of doing business.
Singularity.
Yes, but if you have in multiple jurisdictions, you go from one country to the other, it's not the same culture. So a different management approach for each different country. So that's been one humbling experience. And secondly, then be not just the culture of the company itself, but it's also the way then business is done in that climate jurisdiction. So in some countries, the youth, or being young and dealing in very, very serious engineering projects could be considered as a disadvantage, because then people expect a lot more from you, because they want more KYC and due diligence and things like that. So we've had to deal with that, obviously, and actually show our strength on doing projects. On the other hand, there might be also jurisdictions where, unfortunately, because people, especially in some of the African markets, people feel that the technology that we're dealing with is not so mature on the African, and it's true, we don't really manufacture a lot of these things, some of these markets. So sometimes people expect that they would see somebody at the helm of affairs of this company that is a Caucasian, from some other, I've gotten that in one, it doesn't happen often, but it's happened very few times. And for me, things like that no longer, because I've been in different platforms where I've had to, in the past, deal with that. So I understand how to deal with that. But of course, we have a lot of Caucasians within our company working with this company. So when I see such kind of things, and I could delegate sometimes, somebody else.
Not only being a Caucasian, they want to have white beards.
White beards, Caucasian, have gray hairs, stuff like that. Because you're talking about the kind of deals you're discussing,
Who is this one?
the kind of numbers, and the kind of deals, and the delicate nature of the projects you're talking about, like complex power projects. They expect that it should be somebody of a particular kind of kind of stereotypes. There's a lot of stereotypes in the market, but one has to deal with those, because you're in business. At some point you cannot always be defensive in terms of the market. You need to listen to the market and not approach the market in the way it ought to be. So what we've always had to do is to ensure that we have a culture of excellence. That's one, and secondly, we have a very diverse team as well, intentionally. One that we have a very strong gender balance, very diverse team. We have 14 nationalities within the
Wow.
So that allows, it really also allows us to learn a lot from running a diverse organization and dealing with the market
Smart.
the way it ought to be. And that brings also the question of partnership. Partnership that is built on value
Mm-hmm.
and complementarity
Mm.
has more chances to stand the test of time than one that is built on just feelings
Mm.
or even gut feelings,
Mm.
right? There has to be the part at which we can say we're learning from each other
Yeah.
strongly.
Absolutely.
Once that goes out of the picture, it's then one begins to question the need for the partnership.
Yeah.
So learning from each other, but bringing as much to the
Value.
table as well,
Yeah.
in terms of value. Yeah. So
Complementary
that has
value.
been also one of the reasons for the longevity of the partnership I have with my co-founder at Growth Energy, is that we both strongly complement each other in terms of our skills. I'm on the technical side, the engineering side. He's on the finance side. So, and the projects we do require both strongly. Finance, engineering, because the projects we do, we finance them, we structure the financing, but also we need to execute them from a project perspective. So that value-based complementarity around a partnership, the fact that each person feels and acknowledges that each party is bringing as much to the table, but also we're learning from each other, is really key. And at the point at which that no longer is the case, then it opens room for one partner to question the legitimacy of the partnership and want to buy out the other one or want to exit the partnership and things like that. Yes, but I've never had to do that because we still maintain this value-based relationship, and I expect that this should continue.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think we're starting to wrap up. Final words to someone out there in the 9 to 5, wanting to go the path of, like you rightly established, entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship. At one point there was a data that said that a Microsoft employee, I think was Steve Ballmer, I can't remember his name, was earning more than Bill Gates. He was an employee earning more than the founder. So it's not entirely true when people say entrepreneurship is the only path. We need to make that clear, but we want you to have the entrepreneurial mindset even while you're in the job. Do you get those kind of people are hard to replace? Those are the kind of people that fire their bosses or fire their companies before they get fired, because they know their onions, because they keep an entrepreneurial mindset. They add more value than they are paid for. Those kind of conversations. So, what would you say to that person that is in a 9 to 5, wanting to prepare for the future, wanting to solve for the future, wanting to, prepare themselves for what's next?
The greatest entrepreneurs in the world are those that never wanted to be entrepreneurs, but looked so hard for the kind of context, the opportunity, what they felt was a solution in the market or an alignment with the market, but didn't see it, and try to convince wherever they found themselves, whether in a job, etc., to do those things, but they didn't happen. So they were forced to create a company, right? As you rightly said, Unity, indeed, there's a place for both entrepreneurs, employees, and entrepreneurs. Not everyone can be entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And great organizations function because some people are entrepreneurs and others are actually great employees. Yes, they make it happen. And there's been many cases of companies where there has been leveraged buyouts, right, by employees that have decided they come together to take over the companies, right? So, and there's been great success stories coming from that. So for those that want to go into business, it has to come from a place of this innate, earnest desire to see something change, but first trying to change it within the context ambits of the company, because sometimes there could be there are lots of companies that listen to their employees. I actually was reading and I saw that some of the big conglomerates around the world, actually most of the new ideas that come up from those companies, they're spin-offs. Exactly, spin-off companies. So that's even the first. I think that's even the first thing that I even would advise anybody looking to go into business to consider, is first to consider a partnership with the company you're working with if that opportunity arises, because they have the resources and
they trust you.
They trust you, yes, and we cannot underestimate that resources is very key in building a business, right? So it's go for it, but with this understanding that entrepreneurship is not a walk in the park. So there has to be some preparedness, and there has to be clarity of what the idea, product, or innovation is, but also a go-to-market strategy, and having access to finance is very key, and that's why
Sure.
first exploring partnerships is very important, and seeing first if one can partner with the existing organization or if that organization can become the first client,
True.
and then
Yeah,
before
makes
then
sense.
scaling from there. But it's also knowing that no matter how prepared you are, you will still be taken aback by entrepreneurship. So it's just go for it, go into the wild,
In the local
join us.
palace, you be served breakfast. When you get in, you know how it's everyone has a plan.
Or get punched in the face. Exactly. So you just have to go for it, and it will be a learning experience. But if you go with the right intention, no matter how tough it gets, right? If you have the right demeanor, predisposition towards the market, then you would find a way to always innovate. And many entrepreneurs today, they're never on their first or second or third or fourth business. One time they have to iterate many times,
and all of them. Yeah,
exactly.
True.
Exactly.
True. Impressive. Any final words? Anything we might have missed out that you'd like to share before we go? Any final words to you?
Yes. It's also on the place of relationships. Because iron sharpens iron. In the game of entrepreneurship, a lot of the things that happen from a place of synergy. You talked about synergy, cooperation, etc. So it's also having friends. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's good to keep friends that are also entrepreneurs, because you can share. I learned a lot from Unity and his wife in their entrepreneurial journey as well, and other friends. Right, we learn a lot from a lot of stories of other friends as well, and the unique journey. And all of us are looking at the moment at AI. We're asking ourselves questions. We're thinking around the same things. So what's the world going? What would be the impact of artificial intelligence, etc.? So I think those would be my parting words. Is your network determines your net worth ultimately, because you must be ready that, and I tell myself this quite regularly, that if everything that we have built so far is taken away and I can't build it back, then there's a problem, because it's not about what is built. It's really about the value one has become. It's what one becomes in the process. Because that's what can rebuild.
That's your DNA. That's the dynamic capability. It's absolutely not, you can't copy that.
Absolutely.
And that's what you use to produce.
Absolutely. And this can sound very banal in the way I've said it, but if you look at stories of great entrepreneurs, without mentioning them, entrepreneurs that there was even a time I read a book and it's about Donald Trump, and he was saying there was a time he was being asked by somebody on the road in front of him that was cleaning his shoes, and he said, well, you might be worth something, a certain amount of money, but you're richer than I, because at that time it was in more than $1 billion debt, right? So and this is not the only story. There's been a lot of entrepreneurs that have come from nothing to build again. But what has made that possible? It's because of what is inside. And I think that's the greatest part of the journey of being an entrepreneur, is what you become in the process. And that's why no matter how hard it gets, because entrepreneurship is a tough game, and I might be here talking, etc., but I know what we are carrying, right? What we're having to deal with on a daily basis, right? So what I would say is it's about what you become in the process. It's more powerful than whatever people see. Those things they see is as a result of a lot of the process, what is going on the inside, the transformation that happens. And it's that transformation that makes it possible to replicate it. Where the problem is if anything happens to the business or the industry changes and the transformation is not able to produce something else or produce a new direction, produce a new impact, etc. And think about somebody like Steve Jobs that was fired from his company, the company he built, but he went on to build. So that tells us the story about that. So that innate and that lifelong continuous learning is what makes great entrepreneurs.
That's true.
And what happens within is more important.
Absolutely. It's the reason why they say you invest in people, not in ideas necessarily. It's people who make these things happen. This has been very powerful. Thank you, John. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming to see us in Ottawa. And hopefully we'll see you again very soon. And I believe that everyone watching have had some changes to their mindsets, has reinforced some beliefs that they already have and the things they already know. And they're not only rethinking their jobs, they are rethinking their growth processes and they are looking on to sort of creating their future in the way they desire, not a future that is foisted on them by their employers, or by the tweet of the tweet of the most powerful man in the world, But they intentionally create their future. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Looking forward to having you on the next episode. Like, share this video. Let's get this word viral, and let's make some impact out there. Thank you all, and see you on the next one. Have a good day.